You have seen the photographs. You have read the articles. You may have even been there, walked through Kyoto's temple districts, eaten ramen in a standing bar in Shinjuku, watched the controlled choreography of rush hour at Shibuya Crossing. You came away with a feeling that you understood something. Japan has a category of fact that tourism doesn't reach and guidebooks don't cover. The kind of fact that sits underneath the surface of everything you observed and changes the meaning of what you saw. Not shocking facts, not frightening facts. Facts that are more unsettling than either of those, because they suggest that what you thought you were looking at was not what was there. In this video, we are counting down 12 things about Japan that will surprise even people who have visited. Stay with me to the end, because number 1 changes everything. So hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and let us begin. Japan contains the world's oldest continuously operating family business, Kongo Gumi, a construction company founded in 578 CE that operated for 1,428 years before being absorbed into a conglomerate in 2006. It also contains more robot restaurants, more vending machine innovations, and more convenience store technology than any comparable nation. These two facts are not in tension. They are the same fact. Japan's relationship with time is not linear. The old and the new do not replace each other in Japan the way they do in most Western countries. They coexist, sometimes in the same building, sometimes in the same person. The 80-year-old carpenter using techniques unchanged since the Edo period, and the 25-year-old software engineer designing the next generation of Tokyo's transit management system are not in different Japans. They are in the same one. Most visitors see one or the other. The surprise is that there is no either slash or. Every visitor to Japan is told about the business card ritual. 2 hands, small bow. Read it carefully before putting it away. Never write on it. Never fold it. The guidebooks explain this as a form of respect for the person whose card it is. This explanation is correct as far as it goes. What it does not explain is what the business card actually is in Japanese social architecture. The meishi. The business card is not primarily an information transfer device. It is a physical representation of a person's place in the social order. When you receive a meishi, you are not receiving contact information. You are receiving a formal notification of where this person stands relative to you, and by receiving it with the prescribed ritual, you are acknowledging that relative position and your own. The card tells you how to address the person, how to speak to them, what topics are appropriate, what requests are reasonable. Visitors who see the ritual as politeness are seeing the surface. The card is a map of the relationship you are now in. In most Western cultures, silence in a conversation is a problem to be filled. An absence of words signals discomfort, disapproval, or social failure. Visitors to Japan who understand this tend to fill Japanese silences immediately, often with something they did not intend to say. The Japanese concept of emiya negative space, meaningful emptiness, applies to conversation as it applies to architecture, music, and visual art. A silence in a Japanese conversation is not an absence. It is a presence. It communicates. What it communicates depends on the context, the relationship, and what was said immediately before it. A Japanese person who responds to your statement with silence may be expressing respect. The statement deserves consideration before response. They may be expressing disagreement. The statement is too wrong to address directly. They may be expressing something that has no English word. Visitors who filled those silences talked their way out of things they did not know they had. In most of the world, the sequence of death is burial, followed by cremation or burial without cremation. In Japan, the sequence is cremation followed by burial, and the cremation ceremony contains a ritual that no visitor who has not attended one is prepared for. After cremation, the family gathers around the remains. Using chopsticks, the only occasion in Japanese culture when food protocols around chopsticks are deliberately violated, family members transfer the bones to the burial urn. They do this together. They pass bones between chopsticks, from person to person, beginning with the feet and ending with the skull. The deliberate violation of food protocol, passing things between chopsticks, is the most serious table manner violation in Japanese. Dining marks the ritual as outside ordinary life. The bones are handled with the same implements used for meals, in a way that is explicitly not the way those implements are used for meals. The boundary between the living and the dead is marked by crossing the most ordinary social boundary in reverse. Most visitors know that Japan has both Shinto shrines and Buddhist temples. What most visitors don't know is that the majority of Japanese people practice both simultaneously, without experiencing this as a contradiction. The division of function is precise and has developed over 14 centuries of coexistence. Shinto manages the living births, marriages, the new year, agricultural cycles, business openings, the relationship with the land and its spirits. Buddhism manages the dead funerals, memorial services, the ongoing relationship with ancestors, the management of death and what follows it. A Japanese person is typically born Shinto and dies Buddhist. The wedding photograph is taken at a Shinto shrine. The funeral is conducted at a Buddhist temple. The same person, the same life. Two religious frameworks, each managing the part of existence it is best suited to. Visitors who ask a Japanese person their religion and receive the answer, both, are not being evasive. They are being precise. Japan is one of the most technologically sophisticated countries on Earth. It is also one of the most cash-dependent developed economies. In 2023, Japan's cash usage rate was approximately 80% of transactions, compared to under 30% in most Western European economies. The persistence of cash in Japan is not technological conservatism. It is cultural architecture. Cash in Japan is clean. It is direct. It does not require a third party, a bank, a payment processor to mediate between giver and receiver. When you pay cash for something in Japan, you are paying the person in front of you. The money goes from your hands to theirs without passing through an institution that takes a portion and records the transaction. The cash is typically presented in an envelope at formal occasions, a specific amount, folded in a specific way, the envelope chosen for the occasion. The presentation is as important as the amount. The manner of giving is inseparable from the gift. Japanese food culture contains a hierarchy that most visitors consume without seeing. The itemai, the head chef in a traditional Japanese kitchen, occupies a social position closer to a master craftsperson than a service professional. The relationship between the chef and the diner in a high-end Japanese restaurant is not the relationship between a seller and a buyer. It is the relationship between a practitioner of a discipline and someone who has requested access to that discipline. The omakase meal in which the diner says, "I leave it to you," and the chef determines everything, is not a luxury format for people who cannot decide. It is an acknowledgement of mastery. The diner is releasing control to someone who knows more than they do. The surprise for visitors is that this hierarchy exists invisibly in every Japanese meal, not just the expensive ones. The ramen shop owner who has been making the same broth for 30 years is in the same relationship with their customers. The craft is the authority. The customer's role is to receive it. Western visitors to Japan often notice what they describe as a Japanese love of nature, the cherry blossoms, the autumn leaves, the moss gardens, the mountainside temples. What they are observing is accurate, but the framing is wrong. Japan does not love nature the way you love something outside yourself. The Japanese relationship with the natural world, expressed through Shinto animism and through the aesthetic principles of wabi-sabi and mono no aware, is not the relationship between a human and an environment. It is the relationship between a human and the thing they are made of and will return to. The cherry blossom is beautiful because it falls. The moss is beautiful because it is old. The mountain is sacred because it existed before human beings and will exist after them. The Japanese garden is not designed to look like nature. It is designed to make visible the principles that nature runs on. Visitors who photograph the cherry blossoms are photographing beauty. Japanese people who gather under them are marking their own transience. Japan has the longest average working hours of any developed nation. It also has the concept of inamuri, sleeping at work, which is not only tolerated, but interpreted as a sign of dedication. The person who falls asleep at their desk has been working hard enough to exhaust themselves. The visible surface of Japanese work culture, the long hours, the group loyalty, the after-work drinking that is functionally mandatory in many companies, is real. What visitors miss is what the work is doing that is not productivity. The Japanese workplace is a social institution that provides many Japanese people with their primary community, their closest relationships, and their most significant sense of purpose. The long hours are not entirely about output. They are about belonging. The office, after 8 p.m., is populated partly by people who have nowhere else to be that provides what the office provides. Japan has a word for dying from overwork. It also has a word for the loneliness of people who have no place to be. Japanese culture contains multiple forms of apology, and Western visitors almost universally misread them. The most common misreading, sumimasen, which is translated as "excuse me" or "I'm sorry," in most phrasebooks, is interpreted as an apology when it is more accurately understood as an acknowledgement that a social debt has been created. When a Japanese person says sumimasen to a server who brings their food, they are not apologizing for having ordered. They are acknowledging that the server has done something for them, that this creates an obligation, and that they recognize the obligation. The word marks the moment a social debt is created, not the moment it is discharged. The deeper apology, the formal, elaborate, public apology that Japanese corporate and political culture produces in extraordinary quantities, is also not primarily about guilt. It is about restoring the social order that the offense disrupted. The bow is deep not because the feeling is deep, but because the restoration requires it. Japan's population peaked in 2008 at approximately 128 million people. It has been declining since. The projections are not ambiguous. By 2060, Japan's population is expected to fall below 90 million. By 2100, some models suggest fewer than 60 million. Japan is not declining the way populations decline through emigration or disaster. It is declining through the simple arithmetic of births and deaths in a country where the birth rate has been below replacement level for decades. This is not a secret in Japan. It is discussed constantly in government policy documents, in newspaper editorials, in the casual conversation of people who have noticed that their hometown has fewer children than it did when they were young. Japan knows exactly what is happening to it. The knowledge has not produced a solution. What visitors see as a thriving, functioning society is accurate. What they are looking at is also a society that knows, with actuarial precision, what it will look like in 40 years. Both things are true simultaneously. Japan has learned to hold them both. The Ise Grand Shrine, the most sacred site in Shinto, is rebuilt from scratch every 20 years. Not restored, not renovated, demolished and rebuilt, using the same design, the same materials, the same techniques by craftspeople who have trained specifically for this purpose. The shrine has been rebuilt this way for over 1,300 years, across 65 rebuilding cycles. The current structure is always new, the shrine is always ancient. The Japanese concept underlying this practice is not preservation, it is renewal. The shrine does not survive by being maintained. It survives by being remade. The form persists. The material does not. This is the fact underneath all the other facts in this video. Japan understands that nothing is kept by holding on to it. The carpenter's technique survives by being practiced, not by being recorded. The shrine survives by being rebuilt, not by being preserved. The culture survives by being remade in each generation, not by being maintained from the last one. The West builds museums. Japan rebuilds shrines.